Welcome. Welcome to what we believe will be a series of videos on the US and Africa trade relationship. Each of these is an expert in their field, but more importantly, in the US-Africa trade dynamic.
I think that this is a really exciting time in the relationship between the United States and Africa, and I hope that we take advantage of that opportunity, which I think has presented itself right now as we think about what should happen next with AGOA, as we look at this trade and investment partnership with the East African community, and all of the other things that we're talking about, Power Africa, Trade Africa, these various initiatives that I think are gaining momentum. I would say, though, that what needs to happen next on all sides is that we really focus on what could happen, what's possible. What does the market look like? And what could the market look like if we were to further develop our relationship? I think this is time for a real partnership. And I think that that's a bit of a change in how we're approaching things from both sides, that this is no longer just a trade preference program. It's no longer a one-way thing, it's a real partnership. And I think we together have the chance to do this in a way that's going to be mutually beneficial.
The American relationship with Africa should not be necessarily limited to one or two or three governments that happen to be today coming out of war and can solve an existing conflicts, but you really need to take that longer view, work with the African Union, build the capacity of help African Union play its role, help COMESA play its role, CEMAC, EAC play their role, ECOWAS, such that then you really have in front of you partners that know where they want to go and who can then agree and make commitments that they will honor.
I think we're at this inflection point with AGOA. Passed into law 2000, we're coming up on 15 years very soon. And I think we have to ask, has AGOA achieved its potential? And I think in some areas it has, in many other areas it hasn't. So I think everything has to be on the table. In terms of products, certainly agriculture. I mean, 2/3 of the people on the African continent are employed in agriculture. And I think we should be asking ourselves, can AGOA be more of a mechanism for enhancing productivity in the agricultural sector? We need to have that conversation.
Well, the process of enacting legislation or renewing existing legislation is a complicated one. All of the stakeholders who are involved in the process will be making their views known. Formally through things like the ITC investigation that's just been formally announced, and informally through discussions with both the congressional offices and with the administration. Once there's some kind of consensus that distills itself through those communications, a bill will be drafted, and it will probably be drafted by the House Ways and Means Republican staff, that's a majority staff, and then hearings will be held. Eventually there will be a vote, either on a freestanding bill to renew AGOA or a packaged group of bills, and that's a very real possibility because there are a number of trade bills that are pending before this Congress and that people would like to see moved before the end of this Congress, the end of next year.
We should not just emphasize trading with the United States without trading with our own countries. And the reason for this is, first of all, we need to be competitive. We know the problems of that we have a lot of products that we could sell in the United States, but we don't. We are not competitive, but we can be competitive. And the first one has to do with building these regional value chains, which would make each country relatively competitive in terms of production, not necessarily of a particular product, but parts of a product. When you get to that point, then you'll be able to enter the global value chains. It's easier for the Africa to enter the global value chains when you have been able to build these regional value chains. The key, though, to be able to build the regional value chains is opening up the borders, making sure that goods and services can move easily, that you have movement of people, talent, basically, And that is what will be really key in terms of being competitive and building the regional value chains. And that is the way to then be able to enter the United States and other markets. And so basically regional integration should be the priority.
So it's the hope of what you can do with AGOA that really moves us along. AGOA is a solid program. There is simply no opposition to it in the United States and in Africa. So the question is, how do you enhance it? What do you do to make it better? And there are two basic things that you should do to really make AGOA so it will live up to what people think it is now doing. It will live up to its expectation. It will live up to its promise. And number one, we should really go through, drill down, as the way Mr. Froman put it, the United States Trade Representative Mike Froman put it, drill down on the provisions, figure out how can we make this into the most effective trade program the U.S. has. And that would involve reviewing current provisions, modifying them as necessary, universal designation, we'll say collective action if there are countries that depart from the democratic way as opposed to unilateral action, which is not always as well received in Africa, as if you work together with the African Union, the regional economic communities. But secondly, and perhaps as important, maybe even more important, is to put AGOA into what I consider the blueprint for Africa, into the many other things the U.S. are doing. We need one solid initiative to cover our relationships with Africa. There are many components of this initiative, of which AGOA is one. The recent Power Africa is 2. Trade in Africa could be 3. Feed the Future could be 4. Doing business in Africa. There are so many initiatives around.
Well, I mean, I'm a lawyer, so I think about obligations in the sense of how do you really make sure that what you have on paper comes to life in reality. And I think that that's been one of the things that's been challenging all around. There is a lot of high-level agreement, but sometimes it's hard to see the high-level agreement translate into real changes for a farmer who's trying to move something from one market to the next.
Well, that's a reflection of the level of capacity needs that Africans have, okay, in the sense that if a particular government doesn't have an evidence-based vision, one of the things that Americans should help do is to educate them into having that kind of vision.
So what I would like to see is where investing in Africa is part of the same conversation that investing in Latin America and investing in Asia is for American businesses.
I think that it's probably too early right now and in the next few years for most African governments to consider free trade arrangements with the United States. But in 15 years, I think it will be the right time for people to start talking about that.
For Africa to reach the tipping point is that we really need to focus on 3 I's. One is regional integration, I, integration. The other one is institutions, improving our institutions of governance, and then infrastructure. And infrastructure is actually very important in terms of achieving. You can't really have integration without also having the heavy investments in infrastructure.
I think that people who want immediate results or immediate proof that trade is flowing really does not understand economic development. But if we get this in place and then we continue to work on capacity building, regional infrastructure, like Katrin Kuhlmann points out so effectively and so on, I think we will really end up with a very fine structure by the time we begin the next decade.